Welcome to the last module on environmental studies. Subject code is 18 CIV 59. I'm Professor Suresh Mane, working at Girija by Sale Institute of Technology in Karwar. So, what is the syllabus in the fifth module? The latest development in environmental pollution mitigation tools, concepts and applications, GIS and remote sensing, environmental impact assessment, environmental management systems, ISO 14001, environmental stewardships, NGOs, and even visit to a energy engineering laboratory or green building or water treatment plant. So as per the syllabus, let us see what is remote sensing. Many of you may be knowing, remote sensing is the process of detecting and monitoring the physical characteristics of an area by measuring its reflected and emitted radiation at a distance, mainly by satellites, using special cameras. Special cameras collect remotely sensed images which help the researchers sense things about the earth. Like from the satellite images, we can make out. In our earlier discussion, I have shown you Arctic ice that is melting. So that picture was taken by satellites, and it is being taken regularly now to see the variations in the physical characteristics. Okay. So remote sensing is the art and science of making measurements of the earth using sensors on aeroplanes or satellites. These sensors collect data in the form of images and provide specialized capabilities for manipulating, analyzing and visualizing those images. Basically, remote sensing imagery is integrated with GIS. Okay. Now we can see this remote sensing. You have satellites. They have got cameras, very high definition cameras. So they take the images of all the, like sunlight is falling on the buildings, plants, trees, water bodies, and so the satellites are able to take images of all this, and they are regularly taken, and like it was told, they are analyzing, manipulating and visualizing. So the geographic information system GIS, which is in sync with the remote sensing, it is a framework of gathering, managing and analyzing data. A GIS is a conceptualized framework that provides the ability to capture and analyze spatial and geographic data. GIS applications are computer-based tools that allow the user to create interactive queries, store and edit spatial and non-spatial data, analyze spatial information output, and visually share the results of these operations by presenting them as maps. So it's a scientific study of geographic systems, applications and concepts. So here you can see again the data how they take, like it can be a street data, it can be a data of a building, it can be data of vegetation, it can be, then we integrate all the data. So you can see here using this GIS they make apps. Nowadays everybody is having a smartphone, so all the apps are available, and using this remote sensing and GIS, lots of maps and apps are made so that people will come to know the changes. Like we gave example of melting of Arctic ice or submerging of coastal area. All these things are increasing the pollution levels. These are all data is collected and captured by remote sensing and GIS. GIS are utilized in multiple technologies, processes, techniques, and methods. It is attached to various operations and numerous applications that relate to engineering, planning, management, transport, logistics, insurance, telecommunications, and business. Even this fuel tanks you have seen, this which this petrol, diesel, and all the bring to bunks. So that they also have the GIS tags. So that it is monitored from the time it is filled and the tank time it is emptied. That entire movement is monitored using this GIS. So basically, you get the time, location, and extents are found in the Earth's space-time, and the data you can see in X, Y, Z coordinates. So that is the advantage. You can see the data in real-time basis. Yes, as and when it is happening, it is recorded. So this was about remote sensing and GIS. Now we will go to EIA. EIA is Environmental Impact Assessment. Is a process of identifying, predicting, evaluating, and mitigating the biophysical, social, and other relevant effects of development proposals prior to major decisions being taken and commitment made. I think here I like to give now this Kaiga power plant. They are going for expansion. They have four smaller plants now, 210 megawatts. Now they are going for 750 megawatts, two plants. So that is a huge major decision, and for that, they any such decision like big industries, they need to have a EIA, that is environmental impact assessment, to assess what will be the impact of the plant on the social, biophysical, and other relevant effects. So EIA is the assessment of the environmental consequences. It can be positive or it can be negative also, of a plan, policy, program, or actual projects prior to the decision to move forward with the proposed action. So normally this EIA, they conduct public meetings. Even in Kaiga, I think they had come and conducted public meetings. So anybody who has got a positive opinion or who has got a negative opinion can go there and submit his opinions. So it is an open forum discussion they take place. There is a hearing on that actually. In this EIA is usually applied when actual projects by individuals or companies, and then the term SEA, Strategic Environmental Assessment, applies to policies, plans, and programs most often proposed by organs of the state. If government is doing it, then it is called as they can say SEA. But if business people, companies, individuals are doing, then it is called EIA. So EIA is very important tool for environmental management, forming a part of project approval and decision making. So before a decision is made, so we should know what is the impact. Like suppose you want to set up a coal power plant, and if you want to set a coal power plant, then and in a city with lot of population, then it is not advisable. Lot of dust will be there, lot of smoke will be there, a lot of traffic will be there. So these kind of things are discouraged. So these assessments are done in the EIA. The purpose of the assessment is to ensure that the decision makers consider the environmental impacts when deciding whether or not to proceed with a project. Any project is there. So before they want to decide to go ahead with the project, they will see what will the impact of the project. So in India, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has been great in the efforts of EIA in India actually. So for this, they will consider the laws like Water Act 1974, Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972, and the Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981, Environmental Protection Act 1986, Biological Diversity Act 2002. These are all acts are taken into consideration when this EIA is conducted. The EIA needs a significant amount of primary and secondary data environmental data. Primary means what they go and study themselves in person. That is called primary data. Secondary data is the data which is already available with the district authority, local authorities. That is known as, or in the internet. That is known as secondary data. Primary data are those collected in the field to define the status of the environment, like air quality data, water quality data, etc. Secondary data are those collected over the years that can be used to understand the existing environmental scenario of the study area. The environmental impact assessment studies are conducted over a short period of time, and therefore understanding the environmental trends based on the few months of primary data has limitations. See, when you want to set up a plant which will have life of 50 years, so only for 5 months studying will not be of use. So the primary data will be short term, but long term secondary data is considered. Now we shall look at environmental management systems, EMS. It's a system and database which integrates procedures and processes for training of personnel, monitoring, summarizing, and reporting of specialized environmental performance information to internal and external stakeholders of a firm. The most widely used standard on which EMS is based is ISO 14001, that is International Organization for Standardization 14001. See, now I will tell you what is EMS. First of all, this is to study and report the environmental performance of a industry to internal or external stakeholders. Now, for example, you take any plant, like industry, like Cipla, Siemens, this Aditya Birla. So they all have got environmental clearances from the respective states, whether it is Goa State Pollution Control Board or Karnataka State Pollution Control Board. Yes. In addition to that, they want to show the external stakeholders, means the people who have invested money, the customers, the local people, that whatever activity they are doing in their plant are not only complying with the local emission norms or local pollution guidelines, but also they are trying to improve the system and reduce the hazards which the plant can be exposed to. So this is a very good system. This is basically not a product system certification. EMS and all, they are for system certification. The system is certified that the company is certified that it is having environmental management system. And the most important tool here is ISO 14001. So basically in developed countries and all, when they are people are making purchasing decisions, they will always see whether the company from which they are purchasing is ISO 14001 certified or not. Why? Because they want to see that whatever the purchases the people are making, that should have the least environmental impact. That should not damage their environment. So they are very conscious of the environment. They are educated, definitely educated, and conscious about environment. In India also, a lot of companies have gone for, all the corporate companies, big companies, they have gone for ISO 14001. So what is the goal of EMS, environmental management system? Simple goal is to increase the compliance with the local laws and reduce waste. Okay. Compliance is the act of reaching and maintaining minimal legal standards. Okay. Otherwise, if you are not meeting the legal standards, then you can be penalized, as the case may be, from the state pollution control boards. So the waste reduction goes beyond compliance to reduce the environmental impact. EMS helps to develop, implement, manage, coordinate, and monitor environmental policies. So like colleges have vision document, organizations have quality documents, likewise they have got environmental policy also. Waste reduction begins at the design phase through pollution prevention and waste minimization. So basically, these companies, especially big companies, corporates, they all go for this environmental management system so that they can comply with the local legislations on emissions, pollutions, and also reduce the waste. The simple formula what they follow is PDCA loop, it is called. That is plan, do, check, and act. So very simple what we also undertake in that. First we will plan what should be my pollution levels, and per specific power consumption, specific water consumption, resource consumption also comes into picture here. Energy, electricity, fuel, water, material consumption, and we plan something per like specific energy consumption, specific water consumption, okay, material consumption means per unit. Suppose I can give an example. If you are manufacturing cars, Maruti Udyog is manufacturing cars, okay, so per car how much electricity should be used. They have a benchmark. Over the years they have benchmarks and they try to improve. Means suppose it is consuming 1000 units of electricity to produce one car, so next year they will try to reduce it to by 5%, 10%. So this is how they are becoming more energy efficient, more resource efficient, like water usage, material usage, okay. So they are reducing the wastage and improving the performance. So they will plan and then they will do. So one year they will manufacture. At the end of the year then they will check, and they will check whether we are on track or improving or degrading. So and basically based on the checks results they will act. If something has to be improved they will improve. Their counseling has to be done, counseling, training has to be done of people, training, machinery has to be changed, they will change. So this is called as a PDCA loop: plan, do, check, and act. Even in your life also you do. Suppose now you have got subjects to study, so you are expecting that I will get 70% results. So you will plan for 70%, so many hours I have to study, so many textbooks, question papers, all these things. Then you will study, you will write. Then you will find that okay, I did not get 70, I got 68% or 65%, 5% less. So why this 5% less? Okay, I did not spend more time on assignments, I did not study well, I did not use good textbooks. So you will act on to that. So this is known as PDCA loop. We are applying in our own personal lives as well as in organizations. Now coming to ISO 14000, it is a family of standards related to environmental management that exists to help organizations minimize how their operations negatively affect the environment. See, any industry, it will be using electricity, it will be using air, it will be using water, it will be using land. So that organization has to comply with the local applicable laws, local regulations, and other requirements. So ISO 14000 family of standards, which is related to environmental management, like ISO 9000 family of standards is related to quality management standards. Similarly, I have got ISO 18000 family of standards, which deals with occupational health and safety. So you have got standards for quality, you have got standards for environment, you have got standards for occupational health and safety, and now you have got ISO 50000 series, that is energy management systems. So all these ISO standards are available and they are globally, please understand, this is international organization for standardization and accepted globally. So it's like a brand image. Okay, I am ISO certified. ISO 14000 is similar to ISO 9000 quality management system in both, and that both pertain to the process on how a product is produced rather than the product itself. So as I told, they are not a product certification that I can say, okay, this car is ISO certified. No, it is not a car is certified. The company manufacturing a car is certified, not the car itself. Okay. It is not a product certification but a system certification. So as with ISO 9001, certification is performed by third party organizations rather than awarded by ISO directly. So here what happens? So when suppose we are producing something, organization is producing something, so they will not certify themselves. Neither the ISO has got headquarters in Switzerland. They don't certify. They have got third party certifications like KPMG, TUV. So many companies are there. They have been licensed by ISO and they will be certifying the companies. They will come visit the company for 3-4 days, stay there, understand the processes. They have their own checklist. They will do internal audits. They will do. Then they will certify. So one beautiful thing about ISO is a continual improvement process. Uh, they always believe in uh, continual improvement so that their impact on the environment is reduced. As I was telling, suppose to manufacture one car, 1,000 units of power is required, and the next year they say that going it reduce it by 950. Then next year they are going to make it to 900. So this is how they are continually improving the process. So ISO sets the criteria for an environmental management system and can be certified too. So there is a certification after the external audit is undertaken. There is a certification, and all these standards actually they are made by the technical committees, various technical committees set up by ISO. Like this is TC 207, and they are improved also. Like ISO 9000 14001 came in 1994. Then it was revised, and the latest version is uh, now 2015. So almost 7 8 years they revised the standards, and more than 3 lakh companies worldwide now are certified for ISO 9000 14001 in 171 countries around the world. So it has got wide acceptability. This is what I wanted to just say. So as a student, I think you like to know what are the steps for ISO 14000 certification. So first, everybody should understand the standard. There are standards like Bureau of Indian Standard has got standards, na? So there are standards you have to study. Then you need to perform a gap analysis. So you have to study what all the standard requirements of the standard, what are there, and what is the present situation. So what is the gap that has to be found out in the first step. Then you need to plan your ISO 14000 project. You will have an management representative who will be liaising between the organization and the certifying body. Okay. Then you need to train the people in the organization for ISO 14001. You will train people like auditors, internal auditors will be trained. Then you will train all the people there in the organization. Then after training, a lot of documentation has to be undertaken. Nowadays, the documentation can be online also. In the e-form, electronic form, documentation has to be done. And luckily now they have made that all the, as I was telling, 9001 for quality management system, 14001 for environmental management system, and 18001 occupational health and safety management system. All they are integrated, so you can have common formats. Any organization now, most of the organization, like I worked in railways at Hubli workshops. So that workshop is certified for 9001, that is quality management system. That was certified for 14001 environmental management system. Even 50001 energy management system also. And luckily I was trained as an internal auditor for these standards. And I used to do as a team audit the various facilities. So you need to implement your EMS and conduct business. Then you need to audit your own EMS. Internal auditing is done first. So when you do internal auditing, you will see that there are some shortcomings. Shortcomings can be should be brought to the knowledge, and then they should be rectified. Any drawbacks are there, shortcomings are there. Then there are two types of shortcomings. One is adequacy, and second is compliance. So you should see that your systems are adequate for meeting the standard, and then you are complying with the procedures whatever is laid down. Okay. So if there is adequacy audit and compliance audit also as a part of internal audits, and then you should apply for the external third party audit. So third party means they are not related to, neither they are related to organization nor they are related to ISO. They are third party. They have some certification fees. They will come study the organization. Then they will do their own audits. They come with their own equipments and all. They study, and then they will certify. So what are the requirements? Like I told, you should appoint a management representative (MR) for coordination. Then you need to identify how the organization interacts with the environment. Means whatever air pollutants are there, water pollutants are there, you have to study all these things. Then identify and of actual and potential environmental impacts. So you need to not only what are the pollutants, what is impact also. and you need to measure and monitor the progress to achieve its objective. So whatever pollutions or levels are there, you have to reduce. You have to comply with the local regulations as well as try to reduce over a period of time. Then there is a concept of environmental stewardship. Refers. So this was about 14,001 ISO 14,001 environmental management system, and now we will discuss about environmental stewardship. That is responsible use and protection of natural environment through conservation and sustainable practices. So please understand, we are, as I was telling, we are not owners. Everybody like you and me, we have got certain life period on this planet Earth. We don't bring anything on the planet Earth. We come and we go empty-handed. So we need to see that we conserve the environment and we have some sustainable practices. Again, I like to repeat, sustainable means not only environmental friendly, economically it should be viable, and socially also it should be acceptable. There are three pillars of this sustainable practices. So Mr. Aldo Leopold championed for environmental stewardship based on the land ethic, dealing with man's relation to land and to the animals and plants which grow upon it. See, it is not that man is the ultimate owner of planet Earth. You have got thousands of animals, thousands of birds, the marine life, insects. So this land belongs to everybody. It is not, unfortunately, man is under the false notion that he is the owner of planet Earth. No, that is not the case. So man also cannot live alone. He needs plants, he needs animals. So it is a proper ecosystem for sustenance of mankind. Even I was reading, if you bees they become extinct from earth, man will not survive long. See, that is the impact of microorganisms also. Even now you can see one small virus that has kept at us at home for the past 6 months, and another 1 or 2 months it will go like that, and it already 10 lakh people have lost life. So please understand that we cannot take environment for granted. We have inherited this planet Earth from our ancestors, and it is our business to see that when we go leave this planet, we give it back the planet, hand over the planet in a proper condition to the generations to come. Okay, we come from Earth, we use all the resources. When we die, either we are burnt or we are buried. So we just go back and integrate ourselves with the Mother Nature. So for this environmental stewardship, we have to reduce our usage of whatever resources we are using. We have to reuse and we have to recycle. These are the three main concepts. And now of late, refuse also has come. So reduce means whatever. I can give simple examples. You get up from your bed, your fan will be on, your lights will be on, your geyser you keep on, your taps will be on. You will be wasting water, you will be wasting electricity. Okay, so actually this is a lack of awareness. It is a sheer lack of awareness. Water which reaches us to our house has gone through a lot of process of filtration. You have seen, we will see further also. It has gone to filtration, lot of pumping energy is used, and it is a very scarce resource. Similarly, the case of electricity, whatever you use for charging your mobiles, fans, lights, AC, TV, uh, these all things consume power, and this power is produced somewhere in some thermal power plant which emits lot of smoke, lot of pollutants. But it is not at the point where we are using, but it is the point where it is generated. I don't think you have seen, but I have visited a Raichur thermal power plant when I was a student like you in final year. So I have seen lot of smoke. The entire city is of dust, fly ash and all. So very pathetic conditions. So we should understand that we have to use the resources very judiciously, whatever it is. Then even like use of LPG, fuel in your house, the use of materials, whatever you are using. Don't waste food. Please don't waste food. Food also to grow a crop, to it takes lot of time, lot of water, lot of energy, lot of chemicals, pesticides. So you have to have an understanding that nothing comes free. Everything has got some impact on the environment. Even now people are talking. I don't know whether you are aware. One Mr. Dr. Rajendra Pachare was there. He is no more. Recently passed away. He got that new Nobel Prize as he was heading the IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that organization got a, Nobel Prize. He was heading that at that time. He is a double PhD fellow. He was not shaving his beard. He told shaving a lot of loss of blade, water is lost. See, such a Nobel laureate guy, he was trying to understand the significance of water, material, energy, and all, and trying to communicate to people. He was heading TERI. TERI is the Energy and Resources Institute. This institute was known as the Tata Institute. Tata Energy and Research Institute, TERI. Earlier it was TERI, Tata Energy Research Institute. Now it is the Energy Research Institute. Now we will come to the concept of green buildings. I think civil engineering students study about this. Green building. Green building means is the practice of creating structures that are using processes that are environmentally responsible and resource efficient throughout the building's life cycle, from siting to design, construction, operation, maintenance, renovation, and deconstruction. See, when we want to suppose build now you take our college building only. Now we are building that second floor of the B block. Okay, so we have designed that. Okay, then we are constructing that. We will be operating that, maintaining that, renovating, and deconstruction means after 70, 80 years it may be dismantled also. So what we have done, for example, we are used laterite blocks, locally available laterite blocks we are used. So now see, please understand. So the transportation of that is a locally available material I have used, and the transportation cost is less. Okay, even the labor which is coming is local labor which is coming because they know how to finish those blocks and construct. So this is one way of reducing the environmental impact. So the EPA components of green building are energy efficiency, renewable energy, water efficiency, environmental friendly materials. Like I was telling, that laterite blocks are environmentally friendly material, naturally available. Waste reduction, lowering toxics, indoor air quality, and sustainable development and growth. So these buildings, if you see our building only, let us study about our college buildings. You have seen most of the blocks, they are having very big windows. You have seen. So our electricity requirement is very low. Naturally, we are using daylight. No tube lights are required. When you come to the college right from morning 9 to 5, it is lit by the sunlight only. So it is energy efficient. And we have windows on the either side, so that is cross ventilation of air. So the building doesn't become hot. Even fans, if electricity is not there, without fans also you can sit. Slightly it is uncomfortable, but still air movement is ensured. Cross ventilation. Okay. Renewable energy we are not put. We should actually go for solar energy for lighting and all. Then water efficiency. You know, water efficiency, I think I should be very happy, and that I have seen all our students, they do not waste water here. We have got limited amount of washrooms, so water is not wasted. So our per capita consumption of water by each student is also low. And we are using environmental friendly materials. As I told, we have used laterite blocks. Even we have used now, I think AAC blocks. I don't know whether you have seen. In some places on the top, we have used AAC blocks. That is aerated autoclaved blocks. So these blocks, like your ice cream, they have a lot of air inside, and they are insulated, so they don't allow the solar heat to come inside. They are light in weight. They float over water. So light they are, and they don't allow the heat to come inside. So these are about green building. The important aspect is it should be energy efficient, it should use renewable energy, it should be water efficient, and you should use environmental friendly materials. Waste reduction should be there. Indoor air quality should be good, and there should be sustainable growth. These are all green, and lot of ratings are there. I don't know whether you are aware of green building ratings. There is something called IGBC, Indian Green Building Council. Then there is LEED. LEED is Leaders in Energy and Environmental Design. Then there is GRIHA, ASSOCHAMS, Association of Chambers of Commerce and Industry. They have got green building ratings. So there are 3 to 4 ratings in India which give ratings for this green buildings. They involve money, but they come study all the processes. They have got their own tables. They write the data and then they give like platinum rated building, gold rated building, silver rated building. So their rating are there, or some star rating. Some ratings are given out by these organization, like I told, IGBC, Indian Green Building Council, then leadership in energy and environmental design, then GRIHA. Okay. Now, lastly, we will come to this wastewater treatment plant. We have seen that figure. So this is not from our country. I just downloaded from internet. You can see how neat that water plant filtration plant is there. We have discussed that first there will be bar screens which will filter the unwanted physical impurities. Then there will be settling tank, and after settling there will be aeration. You can see this this circular things. Now here the aeration takes place. The things are rotating, and then you can see this black ponds. The sludge is kept. This black two black this are the. So sludge is kept here so that it is sun dried. Due to sun it is dried, and then it is used as a manure. So you have got these are the water treatment plants, and lastly the water is also used. Chlorine is used to kill the microorganisms or bacteria. So this completes the topic on your last module, fifth module. We have seen the waste treatment plant, we have seen green buildings, we have seen environmental stewardships. Okay. Then you have seen ISO 14001 environmental management system. Then you have seen EMS, and you have also seen environmental impact assessment. You have seen geographic information system, and you have seen remote sensing. So this especially for environmental impact assessment and all, this remote sensing is useful along with GIS. So I really enjoyed discussing with you. Any doubts are there, you feel free to put your questions in the remarks column, comments. I definitely answer to each and every question being asked. Please understand that it's high time we appreciate the contribution of Mother Nature, environment to us. We have all taken things for granted, and luckily in this corona period when we had lockdown, I think all might have seen that the Mother Earth, lot of good developments were there, like carbon dioxide emission was reduced, wild animals started coming out. There was an increase in wild animals, and the flora and fauna really came back green. But it's mainly due to human greed and human aspirations that we are trying to spoil the Mother Earth. Please understand that Mother Earth or the planet Earth, whatever this natural resources we are having, they are very finite in nature, and we have to use them judiciously. Please understand them, reflect upon, introspect what is your lifestyle, what is your carbon footprint. You have to analyze your carbon footprint. How much in my lifetime, how much carbon dioxide I am releasing by burning, like transportation in my house, LPG is used, electricity is used. So what is my carbon footprint? We have to reduce our carbon footprints. So you have to reduce. You need to plan. I need not tell. You are all wise people and educated people now into professional education. Please understand and appreciate that we have a commitment, we have responsibility, and that is why this syllabus subject is being taught. Okay, thank you. All the best.